let me just kind of give you a little bit of background from the protection and advocacy system standpoint on employment. One of the things is our national association, because we have a national association in Washington looking at federal issues, federal policies. Probably about 5 years ago, I think, is when the report was issued. 2 years, was it? Well, it seems longer. There was a case in Iowa, the turkey farm. You guys know about the turkey farm, and that spurred. There was an incident, a center-based program that was operating and paying people who.
Well, it wasn't just so you know, it was not a center-based. It was not a CRP. It was a private business.
Private business.
Advantage of this.
Right.
And so what happened is our Iowa counterpart went in and did an investigation, found all these allegations, and then it kind of trickled and bubbled up, which then...
They were terrible. They were
absolutely.
They were stealing money from people.
Great.
They were making them live in substandard living conditions. It was terrible stuff.
So from that point on, so once that report was issued, which then all the states and all the advocacy community said, well, if it's happening here, I'm sure it's happening elsewhere. And that's what put shined the light, if you will, on the different programs across the country. And so that's where this is all coming from, is, based on this report that was issued. I think it was 4 years ago, because then the follow-up was 2 years.
Right, exactly. It was a long time, but then it kind of calmed down for a while.
Segregated and exploited was 2 years ago.
No, Henry's Turkey Farm was a long time ago.
The report called Segregated and Exploited was 2 years ago. And then there was Beyond Segregated and Exploited, which is this year.
Well, nonetheless, it put the advocates in the role of, an us versus them standpoint. I think that's what really triggered the whole piece of looking at, community employment versus center-based. And so that's what kind of triggered everything.
Now, you come from Michigan. Michigan was ranked #1 in UCB's case for inclusion study for promoting productivity, which is all about employment, and really measuring community-based employment. And yet they have, both center-based and community-based employment there. Both are very active, and it seems like people get along pretty well. They're not at each other's throats. I think maybe when you walked into Wisconsin's situation, you found a little polarization.
Just a little bit.
So how do you think we're going to fix that?
So who's laughing now?
Well, when I worked in Michigan, Thomas is right. The communities work together. Matter of fact, RFW's counterpart in Michigan, they have their annual conference. Bringing everybody together and disability advocates. I actually was a co-chair for the conference committee. So, I was actively involved in bringing the two groups together and doing some good things. And I think here in Wisconsin, now is the perfect opportunity to have all of us just come together and try to figure out our differences and accept that, we're not going to agree on everything, but the bottom line is going back to the choice and making sure that individuals have meaningful choices and that the state is committed to, and us as well, are committed to ensuring that people have the resources they need to be successful in the community or whatever choice they choose. And a lot of times what we found is that when we're talking about transition out of high school, the only opportunity for employment is a center-based program in that area. Well, let's try, and we ran this in Michigan as well.
Just to let you know, and I mean totally serious.
Right.
I started straight from high school.
Right.
So you can.
And I respect.
So no, I'm just saying, you can't. I've started from scratch, and I worked my way up from scratch.
And I think that's great, and I respect that. I think what as we're looking at things, right now in terms of today's youth and transitioning out, that if the only option is the center-based program, that's great. But I would challenge us to really look at what other opportunities, and this is not reflected on Wisconsin or here or anybody, it's for any groups. really challenged us to look at, can we bring other businesses to the table and provide, making sure an individual has all the choices in front of them. And if they choose that, that's fine.